To begin your contribution to the School of Fish installation, you are going to first want to decide what kind of fish you're going to make. The fish that you choose should have some connection to you in some way, shape, or form. Once you've decided which kind of fish you are going to draw, you are going to need to fold a 12 by 18 piece of paper in half, either the hot dog way or the hamburger way. Your choice should be based on the shape of your fish and which shape of the paper will fit the fish the best. Now, the belly of whatever fish you're drawing should drop all the way down to the bottom edge of your paper. And that bottom edge of your paper should be the folded edge. This is where the two sides of our fish that we're going to create will come together. So it's really important that the stomach, the belly of your fish, drops all the way down to the bottom of your paper. And again, it's important that that edge is folded. I would like you to look at a reference photo as you draw your fish, because your job right now is to render the fish as accurately as you can in the time allotted. You want someone to be able to look at this fish and recognize what kind of fish it is. And remember, two of the important tenets of drawing something that you're looking at from observation are to be aware of the edges in the fish, where two things come together and meet. And also you want to focus on the negative space around the difficult areas, especially the fins. And also, as always, when you're trying to render something from observation, when you're trying to recreate something that you're looking at, you want that left brain to be quiet and you want your right brain to take over. So try to get into that right brain headspace where you're not naming or listing or categorizing or keeping time. You are just looking at edges and spaces and trying to reproduce what you see. Once your fish is drawn out in pencil, an option is to trace it out with Sharpie. Once you have your fish rendered as accurately as you can in the time allotted, it's time to place your fish onto a light source like a window or your laptop light, or even the tracing box, the official tool for tracing. And you're going to face plant your fish onto the light source, tape it down so that it stays in place, and trace a copy of the fish you drew onto the other side of the folded paper. If you traced the other side of your fish with a Sharpie, then you should repeat the same thing on the other side and then erase away any unnecessary lines left behind. Now, it is time to add some color. We are going to be using watercolor pencils for this job. And every time you pick out a watercolor pencil, please double check the end of the pencil to make sure that there is a paintbrush graphic on it, because if there isn't a paintbrush graphic on it, then it's just a regular colored pencil, and you don't want that. We want watercolor pencils. When you move on to adding color to your fish, you can again try to render what you see and copy the colors in your actual fish. I recommend this for fish whose coloring is a huge part of their identity. But for me, the shape of the walleye's fins and body are what give it its characteristic walleye look, and so I'm going to take my freedom and I'm going to color this fish however I want. Once you've decided what your color scheme is going to be, my recommendation is to start laying down the lightest colors first and work your way to the darker colors, because darker colors cover lighter colors better, not the other way around. So if you start with the lighter color and you make some mistakes and errors initially, you can kind of cover them up as you get darker and darker. Remember, these are watercolor pencils. These will be activated with water shortly, and they're going to be mixing together no matter what you try to do. So try to pick colors that go nicely together and avoid complementary colors such as purple and yellow, orange and blue, and red and green. Once you're done coloring one side, it's time to turn your fish over and add color to the other side. I decided to go with an entirely different color scheme for the back side of my fish. I'm kind of going for a warm colors, cool colors situation. Once you are done coloring, it's time to get some clean water and clean paintbrushes and start activating the watercolor pencil. Just like when you started applying the color to the paper, you started with the lightest color, that's going to be your plan of attack for activating the paint as well. You are going to activate one color at a time, starting with the lightest colors and working your way into activating the darkest colors. So I am starting by activating my yellow spots first, then I'm going to move to the light robin egg blue color that I've got going on, and finally I'm going to activate the dark green, working my way from light to dark. Notice that I placed a piece of scrap paper in between the sides of my fish so that I don't accidentally damage the other side while I'm working on activating the first side. 10 out of 10 would recommend. When you're done activating one side, give it a few minutes to dry before you flip it over and start activating the other side. Once you've activated both sides of your fish painting, give it a chance to dry a little bit, a few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and then open up your folded paper and cut around the entire border of the two fish, keeping them connected at the belly. Once your two connected fish are cut out, you are going to fold them back onto each other, and you're going to do a bit of stapling around the border edge of the body of the fish. It's almost like you are sewing this fish closed, except you're using staples for each stitch. The tricky part here is making sure that you are stapling both the top fish and the bottom fish. If when you cut them out, they got a little bit off of each other, that's going to present a fresh challenge for you. Just double check that as you are stapling the fish closed, that it's actually being successful and keeping the fish closed. You will staple all the way around, but leave one space open to apply the stuffing through. Once you've got some of your fish stapled closed, but with a generous opening through which to stuff the fish, you are going to tear up small pieces of scratch paper found in the copy room that was going to be wasted, and you're going to tear it up into little pieces, and you're going to scrunch it up into little crumbles, and you are going to piece by piece, bit by bit, stuff the fish to give it form. Feel free to use a skewer or like a pencil to push the paper down towards the back end of the fish and make sure it's all nice and stuffed, and staple it a little bit more closed as you go. And then eventually your whole fish is going to be stuffed from tail to nose, and just make sure that you do the final stapling to keep the stuffing inside. After the fish is stuffed with scratch paper and sealed closed with staples, you might want to finesse a little bit more by going around the border of the fish and cutting off any excess paper that's hanging out from the other side. And final step is to grab up a glue stick and glue together the dorsal fins, like so. From here, you could also cut out other fins if needed. My walleye technically has more fins coming out of its belly, so I could, if I had the time, create paper fins and glue them on at this point. But I'm going to proceed, and I'm going to put in the hanging mechanism. As you already know, my plan is to have as many students as I can get a hold of create their own stuffed fish and then hang them in the hallways, like a swimming school of fish, right? It'll be like an art installation, like a sculpture that you are forced to be a part of. So I need all of these fish ready to hang. To do that, you will thread a needle, just like you always do, and you will poke the needle through the middle base of your top dorsal fin and pull the thread so that it is halfway through, and then take the two tails of that string and tie them together. This will create a loop from which I can hang them on hooks from the ceiling. Clearly, this is my cat's favorite project because both of them made an appearance throughout this video.